Weather Service in La Crosse has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for northwestern Winona County in southeastern Minnesota.
Alright everybody, it's Saturday, it's the weekend, so it's time for another week in review here. This is something new that I'm starting every single week. It's going to be released either on Saturday or Sunday. One thing I'm going to be doing with these videos is asking everybody on Facebook toward the beginning of the week a question. This week was, where are you located? We had two relatively exotic answers. Several people responded. I appreciate everybody that responded. However, some of the more exotic answers, if you will, were Australia and Singapore. This week's question is going to be, have you been impacted by severe weather this week? There's been storms all over the Midwest, Great Lakes region, even in Nebraska, even out on the East Coast. So have you been impacted by severe weather this week? If you had, I'd love to know in the comments, whether it's the Facebook comments, the YouTube comments, or even a direct message to our page, how and when you were impacted by severe weather. Looks like today is going to be a storm chase day. I was going to write it off, but the Storm Prediction Center just issued an enhanced risk for severe weather. I was planning on chasing that day, Monday, but ended up not going. It was a target area in Minnesota, which actually ended up verifying there was a confirmed tornado there up toward the arrowhead of Minnesota. However, on Tuesday, I redeemed myself. I headed toward the Rochester area and sat in a Walmart parking lot for hours in the hot sun. In fact, there was heat advisories and excessive heat warnings in effect. The temperature was almost 100 degrees, and it definitely felt like it. I ended up backtracking a little bit, heading a little bit farther east on the interstate, and found a couple of storms that were really struggling, and they were just starting to get going as the sun was going down. So I was able to capture a couple sunset photos, a few time lapses. I forgot to mention in the video, but here's a look at these thunderstorms as they finally gained severe status right after dark.
The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning.
Best part of the day wasn't just the storms, it was actually there was a laid back day, and I was able to finally begin filming my new behind the scenes video series of basically preparations and activities for storm chasing. So in a couple of weeks here you'll see me release a couple episodes of that 5 or 6 part series that include not only the preparation but the actual execution of storm chasing. You'll get a behind the scenes look at everything that goes on, from filming, planning, vehicle maintenance, and the actual storm chasing itself. At the end of the day, Tuesday wasn't that great, but again, it did give me a chance to get out there, and it was great being back out on the road, as it's been a couple of weeks. In fact, the last storm chase was that tornado in Iowa, where we saw that tornado right up close within just a couple of 100 feet on the side of the road there, tearing up those cornfields. The following day, Wednesday, was a very hyped event, if you will. It was a very anticipated event. It was a moderate risk for severe weather that doesn't happen very often, especially in the Great Lakes area, in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. That's just something we don't see that often up here. That's something you see mainly in Tornado Alley and Dixie Alley, so when you see it up here, it really catches your eye. But there was a moderate risk for severe thunderstorms. We were expecting a derecho, which is a very large MCS or squall line system that tracks over a very long area, sometimes multiple states, dropping severe hail, possibly tornadoes, but mainly significant wind damage over several hundred miles. I traveled up to the Eau Claire area in Wisconsin. It was about a 5-hour trip, so not too bad. One of my shorter storm chase distances. When I got up to Eau Claire, I repositioned to the Rice Lake area, anticipating severe weather to develop between Rice Lake and Duluth. Now, that didn't quite happen on schedule. In fact, I think it caught the Storm Prediction Center off guard. They issued a mesoscale discussion, which is a product that they use to convey their internal thoughts and messages to meteorologists, storm chasers, and the general public before a weather watch is issued. This mesoscale discussion indicated there was a 95% chance that a tornado watch would be issued by 7 p.m. 7 p.m. came around and no tornado watch. Also, no storms. Not only was there a lack of storms and a lack of a tornado watch, but something just wasn't quite right in the atmosphere. There was a lot more cloud cover than expected, and you could just tell something was off with the severe weather forecast. A couple of moments after 7 though, however, the Storm Prediction Center did issue a different kind of weather watch, not a tornado watch like expected, but they issued a severe thunderstorm watch.
The National Weather Service has issued Severe Thunderstorm Watch number 399, effective until 2 a.m. Central Daylight Time Thursday.
What was unique about this severe thunderstorm watch is that this was a particularly dangerous situation, a PDS. In fact, I believe this was my first ever PDS severe thunderstorm watch. I've been in 5 to 6 PDS tornado watches, but never a PDS severe thunderstorm watch. Again, a particularly dangerous situation tag is attached to a tornado or a severe thunderstorm watch when particularly dangerous conditions are forecasted, as the name implies. For example, very strong violent tornadoes, or a derecho where 90-mile-per-hour straight-line winds were expected. And in fact, that's what the weather watch was issued for, was possible 90-mile-per-hour straight-line winds. And something interesting about this PDS watch is that it included every single county in the state of Wisconsin, except for 6 of them. These storms did eventually develop a little bit later than anticipated, and not in the supercell structure as anticipated. We were originally expecting a tornado threat, and we just didn't quite get that. There were a couple QLCS type tornadoes farther along, including in southern Wisconsin, near, west, and east of Madison, that did spin up some EF0s and EF1s, but they were short and long-tracked and relatively weak. This thing was moving a little bit quicker than I thought, and I got caught up under it due to poor road networks.
The National Weather Service in the Twin Cities has issued a tornado warning for eastern Chippewa County until 9:45 p.m.
In fact, I found 5 bridges that were out in a gridded road network with no signs, and that's what really put me behind. I kept running into bridge closed, bridge closed, bridge closed. It was road closure after road closure. I was actually underneath this MCS, the squall line of severe thunderstorms, the entire trip back from Eau Claire to Monroe, Wisconsin. That's the entire state worth of Wisconsin for the most part, of being under 60 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts, torrential rain, and small hail at times. It made for a very difficult and treacherous drive back.
Well, I already hit one tree, so maybe I should just hit another one. You'll excuse me, I've got a tornado to chase.
Then again on Friday, the storm chaser never sleeps. Friday morning I set off for Nebraska for a sleeper event here in the Sandhills, one of my favorite places to chase. And the Sandhills are very special to me because that's where I caught my first plains tornado. I originally was actually targeting eastern Nebraska, Norfolk, Nebraska to be specific. It's not too far from Sioux City, Iowa, and it wasn't that far of a drive. It was a 6.5 to 7 hour drive. But as I got closer, I noticed the Storm Prediction Center had issued a 5% tornado risk instead of the 2% tornado risk that was in place, and that was a little bit farther west of Norfolk. That prompted me to check models and SPC mesoanalysis. I noticed the best environment for tornadoes, and maybe even a land spout or two, was to the west. A tornado watch was actually issued later in the day for a couple of tornadoes, and a few storms did develop, but they basically busted, and this setup was a bust for the most part. I was able to launch the drone, which is the first. I've actually never used my drone for storm chasing before. I've used my drone for the past 4 to 5 years that I've had it, probably 5 to 6 times a month for other things, but I've never used it storm chasing. So this was exciting, and I'm going to be using it a lot more because once I got it up in the air, I realized how interesting of a perspective of shot you can get. As you can see here, instead of just getting a time lapse from the ground, you can get a time lapse from the air and get a much better perspective. It's very interesting, and I think it's going to make for some great B-roll for some of these weekly review videos in the future.
I'm Storm Chaser Vince Welty, live in the Sandhills of Nebraska.